Hey, what's going on everyone? I'm Rick Harrison, and in today's video, I'm going to show you my ultimate home search process using free tools like Zillow.com and your local public records so you don't waste time on properties you don't want while missing out on the perfect properties that check all the boxes. That's coming up right now. Searching for homes can be super frustrating, especially if the information you're getting is lagging, or even worse, you're not getting all the information that's actually available to you. So in today's video, I'm going to take you through my 5-step initial due diligence process, which I use to ensure that my clients are only receiving homes that check all the boxes, and it also helps them avoid late process surprises that ultimately lead to frustration and heartbreak. So let's get started. So one of the first things I always check on the homes, especially if it doesn't say anything in the actual property description, is the age of the roof and the mechanicals. One of the biggest reasons I do this is because the age of the roof now has become quite an issue in Florida with insurance companies. For instance, most insurance companies nowadays in Florida are looking for roofs to be less than 10 years old. As soon as they start to hit the 15-year-old mark, the premiums start to go up, and in most cases will require that that roof is replaced within the first year of purchase. Obviously, this can be a major expense that you could incur either upfront with the premiums from the insurance companies or later on down the road when you're required to replace that within the first year. On average down here, you can expect a roof replacement to cost anywhere around $15,000 or more. So that's a pretty big upfront expense if you're already on a tight budget or a first-time home buyer. And this is a super simple step, especially in Lee County. All you need to do is have the address of the property, and you go to leepa.org, that's leepa.org. Once you type in the address and the zip code and press search, you'll be brought to a separate page that has a few different options for you to choose from. In order to get information on the permits for things like the roof and mechanicals, you'll want to hit the option for parcel details. Once you accept the terms of use, and scroll down a little bit, you'll see an entire section dedicated to the permits history. Click on that section, the page will reload, and it'll show you a list of the most recent permits that they have. These are all public records, and for quite some time now, Lee County has been keeping track of the permits for properties, whether those be for roofs or ACs or water tanks, or even just something as simple as adding in a fence in the backyard. Not all of these records are up to date or completely accurate, which means that some of the permits may either not have been pulled or may not have been put into the system. This information will give you a good idea of how old the mechanicals are and the roof and how soon they may need to be replaced. For example, an AC unit may only last around 8 to 10 years on average. However, it's not uncommon to see some of the AC units last 15 years or more. The same thing goes with water heaters, and a lot of this really depends on whether it's stored inside or outside. The next section of details that I always look to do my due diligence on is the property actually in a flood zone? And if so, which flood zone is it in? On that same tax assessor's page, if you scroll down a couple more sections, you'll see an entire section dedicated to flood zoning. When you open that section up, right underneath the top bar, you'll see a little link that says Find My Flood Zone. Click on that link and it'll bring you right to a map that describes which flood zone you're in and whether it's in a special flood zone, which will require flood insurance. A lot has changed over the last few years with flood insurance. For example, the same property could have premium quotes from $1,500 a year to $9,000 a year just for the flood insurance. So with expenses that can range in that size per year, you want to make sure you know which flood zone you're in and what kind of premium range you're going to be looking at for the property. The third section that I usually go into is the HOAs and whether or not there are any hidden fees that weren't addressed on those listings. Websites like Zillow.com, Realtor.com, Homes.com, Redfin, they all provide a great service for consumers and provide a lot of information that used to be just private and privy to real estate agents. However, most of these sites are pulling information from the MLS, which is what the real estate agents have access to. So a lot of times you'll see that the information is either lagging, where an active property may actually be pending, but you won't find out about it for hours to come. And at the same time, those websites don't always show you all the available information that the MLS will. Just taking a look at this listing, for example, I've highlighted some of the key things that you won't find on those bigger websites like Zillow.com and Realtor.com. Is the HOA or the condo association pet friendly? And if so, are there certain breeds that aren't allowed? Is there a weight limit? Things like that you'll see on the MLS information where you won't find that on those bigger search engines. Storm protection, which is also a way to get a discount on your home insurance, will also be included in the MLS search results, where you won't find that on things like Zillow.com. Some of the other tricky information that you might find will be the different types of recurring fees as well as the one-time fees. So some of the fees that aren't included on those bigger websites online are things like the master HOA fee, if there's a condo fee inside of the homeowners association fee, if there's special assessments on the property, there's other fees, annual food and beverage fees, mandatory club fees, and then anything that has to do with a one-time fee, like a membership fee for a golf club or a social club. Just to put that in perspective, Fiddlesticks Country Club right here in Fort Myers has an initiation fee that ranges anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000 up front in order for you to actually purchase in the community, and then there's an additional annual $15,000 membership fee to belong to the community. A lot of these types of fees you'll never find on the big search engines and websites online. Some of the other things that you might not see is what is included in those HOA fees. Does it include utilities like water or electric? Does it include lawn care? All of these things add up over time. In a lot of cases, the HOA fee will actually be less than what you would pay for on your own individually. The fourth section that I look at are the utilities themselves. Is it central water and sewer, which is also known as city water and sewer, or is it well and septic? A lot of people try to avoid well and septic down here because we're so close to the sea level, which can cause issues with the actual tanks and wells themselves, as well as if the water does rise or there is flooding of any sort, it can also cause an environmental hazard, toxins actually seeping into the ground. The fifth and final section that I look at for the due diligence is the special assessments and the taxes. The online websites do a great job of showing you what the taxes were last year or the year before. However, the taxes are dictated down here based on what the sales price when the home is purchased. Again, the tax assessor's office with the Lee County or LIPA.org has a great tool for this called the tax estimator. So for the property that we looked at today, we type in the sale price at $330,000, calculate it, and it will actually tell us what the taxes will be right off the bat the first year, and then what they will go down to when you homestead your property. Some of the things that this tax estimate will not include are things like the special assessments for utilities or utility development in certain areas. For instance, the south part of Cape Coral has central water and sewer throughout. However, when you get into the northern parts of Cape Coral, some areas are still on well and septic, but are being converted over to central water and sewer. With these conversions, the city is adding in a special assessment tax to each property to make up for the infrastructure development. These taxes can last anywhere from 20 to 30 years additionally onto your taxes. Other additional assessments in your taxes could include something like CDDs if you live in a community. A CDD is a community development district, which is an additional tax that home builders and community developers add into your taxes to make up for the expenses that they incurred to build community places such as fitness centers or clubhouses, golf courses, and other amenities that are common to the actual community. Other things you might not find in the actual listing itself, but will find in the HOA docs that are usually attached to an MLS, include HOA assessments. These type of assessments usually have to do with unforeseen circumstances or issues within the community or buildings themselves. Things like a hurricane or a natural disaster coming through. Let's say, for example, a community just replaced all the roofs in the community. But all of a sudden a hurricane comes through and all the roofs have to be repaired or redone completely. While the HOA dues did include a fund that allowed them to replace the roofs originally, it would not have the funds necessarily available immediately to redo and repair the roofs that were just redone. In this case, an HOA might impose a tax or an additional assessment onto each member of the community in order to make up for these losses. Well, that's my 5-step due diligence process and something I recommend adding to your home search so that you can save yourself the time and frustration and you won't miss out on the perfect properties that check off all the boxes. If you found this video helpful, please let me know and hit that thumbs up button, and consider subscribing and clicking that notifications bell so you can stay up on the latest tips, information, and data, keeping you ahead of the market trends. And if you found this video helpful, you may be ready to take the next step and learn how to do your own comparative market analysis or CMA. You can watch this video down here. And if you're ready to find properties that aren't even on the market yet, you may be interested in learning how I do that and what you can do to find the same types of properties with this video down here. Otherwise, as always, I hope you stay safe, stay positive, and more importantly, stay free.